Bit of a change in the weather. It's warm and it's sunny compared to the last video we did. We're in snow chasing steelhead. Now we're chasing trout. So we're actually big gear shift, folks. Looks like steelhead season's wound down, and obviously you can see me in full trout area. I do have my little 4-weight trout switch rod with me. We're going to try to see if we can't get some little trout spays, wet flies, and swing up a few brown trout and put the 4-weight switches to work and get a little action. Well, follow along. Let's see what we can find. Little heads up switch here. We were trying to do the spay thing and the swing thing here with these browns, and it would have nothing to do with it. There's a bit of caddis hatching. There's some caddis floating around on the surface. We're seeing some rises, so we shifted gears. We went to a real brushy fly. Rick's got a caddis pattern here. We call it the brush pile. Put that on. Did a dry dropper rig with a wet fly underneath. We're getting some action with that. As I always say, never try to tell the trout what they're going to do, because you'll never win that argument. Listen to the fish. So the fish are telling us they want to feed off the surface. They want some little wet flies, maybe a dry dropper setup. So that's what we're doing, and we're getting some fish that way. So we just had to adjust the way we go. These little switch rods are not the best thing for dry fly fishing, so our casting's pretty ugly. However, with the skinny setups, we can get it done. Dry fly fishing with a switch rod.
No. They're not the most accurate at casting rods like that. Yep. Dang it, let him go. Come on, little bunny. Free.
All right, early in today we were doing really good right off the surface with these big bushy dry flies. We call this the brush pile caddis, one of Ricky's creations. So they were really coming, eating this quite well. Now it's kind of like midday, kind of got that midday blues, and what we discovered is they're now kind of taking this little wet fly I'm running underneath here. It's kind of a hare's ear wet. So obviously I got a dry dropper rig going. It gives me an opportunity to be able to give them two presentations at once, and by doing this we were able to see that they've changed their behavior. With the bright light beating down on them in the middle of the day, the caddis slowing down, the caddis hatch slowing down, these fish are more onto this emerger than they are onto the adult. So this is one of the advantages of running a dry dropper rig. They're definitely kind of shifted off the surface to the subsurface.
Yep.
Head up. You ever notice how long your net is? You notice you use just a little bit more handle?
Yep.
One. Really heads up on what we're doing for gear. These are 11-foot 4-weight switch rods we're running, and how we got them set up. We got them set up with Scandies. Me personally, they're not. I don't quite got my rod set up right. I think I got to play around with my grain window to get it casting better. But anyways, the Scandies is what we're using. Long leader, probably about a 10-12 foot leader. And then for backing, I've gone back to running the mono because it's just a Scandi head, and I often fish a lot of light tippets, 5X, 6X. With this rod, for the running line, I'm running 15-pound test mono. That way, when I have a big fish on, it's way up in the current, I don't have a lot of line drag, putting a lot of undue stress on my tippet. So once again, I'm running probably about a 12-foot leader. Right now, I'm down to 5X. Going to be shifting back over to a dry fly here really quick. The driver head is a Scandi, and then the running line is 15-pound OPS mono. That's what I happen to have at the time, so that's what I'm using, but it's 15-pound test, so I don't have a fat line cutting through the water with a light tippet.
Yeah.
Well, as you can tell, it's probably a different day, and we're in a different section of the river. We tried to fish that evening, and it just didn't work out. So we're upriver in a different spot, and the fish are still on the caddis. It's about midday. We're getting a little bit of dry fly action. This time we actually shifted out to some one-handed rods, something a little bit more appropriate for the type of fishing we're doing. So we're putting Rick's brush pile of caddises, back to work. That was a salute.
We're all monsters.
I'm moving up my knot and my leader. There we go. It's pretty cool. I can watch it come up and swim up and eat it.
He's into a show and tell and release. Oh yeah.
Well, folks, we're going to shut down the fishing here. It's been a couple of good days of fishing, even though it didn't go as planned. Like, we were planning on doing some two-handed stuff, some trout space stuff, and swinging some flies for some trout, but the trout didn't want to play that game. They wanted to eat caddis, and it turned out to be more of a dry fly, wet dropper type of a bit of fishing for the last couple of days. So we're going to shut down the fishing part. I talked about how I set tandems up. I was fishing tandems. So we're going to go in the second part and show you exactly how I set them up and talk a little bit in detail and do some off-stream demonstrations on setting up my tandem fly rigs. Thanks for watching. Please keep watching. Hopefully that the first part was entertaining, a little informative, and the second part of this will be a little informative. Okay, we're going to do a kind of a blog-like portion of this video. As you might have noticed or heard talking about tandem rigging. I fish a lot of tandems for trout when I trout fish. So I thought I'd take a minute and go over how I rig. I keep it really simple. So I'm going to kind of go back to the old hand model thing and show you some stuff, how I set this up. So we're going to take a quote from the Twilight Zone, and I'm going to say, imagine if you will. And hopefully I can make some sense and you can follow along and I don't sound too boring. So here's my, I'm going to attempt at a few different tandem rigs. I think I'm going to do 3 different setups. One that I use for the wet spays, a dry dropper rig, and a double dry rig. The double dry and the dry dropper are pretty much the same, but a couple different setups. So tag along. Hopefully you'll find this useful and interesting, and I won't bore you too much. Alright, this is a rigging that I use for a lot of my streamer fishing, trout space stuff, wet fly stuff. So kind of follow along. Imagine this is one of your favorite trout spays, not some big side of beef that I throw at a smallmouth bass. I'm just using this fly as an example so you can see over the sea of blue and over the camera. So this would be my main fly right here, right off my main line, whatever I'm happy to use. Very often I'll be fishing these things with probably a 3X, 4X, depending on the size of the trailer fly, the big fly. And then right here where my finger is, get it in the camera here, I've got to work on staying in the camera, is a blood knot, which I usually tie to the tippets. Normally I'm using double unis. Double uni will work good too, or surgeons, whatever your favorite leader to tippet knot is. And I got probably from here to here 1.5 feet. And then I'll go above this, and I found this is usually the most convenient thing to do. I want to put a small wet fly, and imagine if you can, this is a small wet fly, not a shark hook, but this is just on for an example. So this would be my wet fly. For an example, this might be 5x, even 6x tippet, because I might be fishing a small wet fly. And I'll just come in here above that knot, if I can do it here, whenever you're in a hurry, nothing works out, and lasso the thing, and make sure your knot gets through the loop, and just cinch that down right above that knot, like that. See if you can see that on the camera. There we go, just like that, just above that. That way I got my knot a little bit long. So I like to have the two flies probably about 1 foot apart. Think about a fish chasing a little wet fly. So that's how I quite often like to do my wet flies. That's how I'll even do nymphs this way, streamers this way, trout spays with a little wet in front. Very often the two parts will be greater than the sum total in the piece, and they'll actually make the dual work a lot better if they're by themselves. So this will be my setup basically for a for like a trout spay or even a wet or a nymph rig I'll be doing when I'm running a tandem. Okay, the next I'm going to show you is a double dry dropper. This I use a lot. I like to dry fly fish, so this is, and very often we fish a lot of spinner returns. Yeah, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I can't see that damn bug out there in last light without some help. So this, in case this is a high vis Adams, very often at dusk I'm using a white wolf. So imagine, if you will, this being a white wolf that I use at spinner time. Off the back of it I got, for an example, this might be a 14 or even a 12 tied up with some 5x or 4x, so I can cast it with authority and not have to worry about tangling. Then drop it off the bend of the hook, some 6x, and then as you get out there you'll see the second fly being, in this case, a rusty spinner or a Henriksen spinner that I'm using for an example here. And this could be the second fly. What's very handy about this whole rig is very often you can't see this fly in the film, especially at last light, but you can pick this indicator fly up. So if you see a trout rise right next to the indicator fly, you know that your spinner's been eaten, or the indicator fly twitches, just appears. The nice thing about this is also offering, in this case, what I like to use a white wolf or even this Adams. During a heavy spinner drop or a lot of bugs, very often you'll get a few fish on the indicator fly, and it could be the best fish of the evening. So it's just basically, get it in here, you can see it, spinner tapered into your indicator fly, and they're just off the bend of the hook. Now to make it a little bit easier to see, I kind of, once again, propped it up on something a little bit bigger. Go back to the old saying, imagine, if you will, this is your white wolf or your indicator fly, lassoed on, and make sure that you get that loop knot through the loop so it'll stay anchored on the back of the hook. If you don't do that, they'll come off and you'll lose your dropper fly. And then back about 1 foot, never mind the shark hook, imagine if you can, this is my secondary fly. Now also, when I do a dry dropper rig, this is the system I use. The only thing I might do is my dropper or my wet fly, in this case the nymph that I do off the indicator fly, the distance between the two could be as much as 2 feet. So I just do it a little bit longer for my, when I'm doing a dry dropper rig with a wet fly or a nymph, and I just use a little bit longer. But I always go a tippet size lighter than the tippet size that I tied on to my indicator fly. So these are basically the main tandem fly rigs that I use. Well, I hope I was able to be fairly coherent in how I'm trying to explain how I rig up my dropper rigs when I'm trout fishing. I keep it simple because you're out on the water, you want to fish, you don't want to knit, so I keep a pretty simple setup. Well, anyways, folks, that's it. Thanks for watching. As always, please give me a comment and please subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'm begging. Thanks for watching. Okay, shameless plug. What can I say? Anyways, I need your help, folks. I got this banner up because everybody's complaining about the background when I do the in-house stuff. As you can see, there's a lot of boxes of fly tying and just rubble in the background, and everybody says it's too busy, confusing, or just don't like it. So comment down below what you'd like to see for a background, and we'll see if we can't put something together other than my shameless plug. So once you just give us a comment, I'd like to hear what your suggestions would be. Thanks a lot, folks.